Welcome back to the channel, Star Wars fans. Today is just for you. Lucasfilm has just announced that Simon Kinberg, known for X-Men Days of Future Past, The Martian, Logan, there's a number of projects he's been associated with, that he's going to be helming a brand new Star Wars trilogy. While fans are divided, there's a lot to unpack here. So today we're going to dive into what Simon Kinberg brings to the table, why Lucasfilm chose this moment for the announcement, and some potential strategies by Kathleen Kennedy behind the scenes. Plus, we'll look at Lucasfilm's recent struggles with directors and projects, especially with The Acolyte. So let's just get into it. First, so let's talk about Simon Kinberg's track record. Kinberg has been involved in some heavy hitters like the X-Men franchise with X-Men Days of Future Past, The Martian, and even Star Wars TV projects like Rebels and The Mandalorian. His work on Rebels has shown that he does have an understanding of Star Wars lore, and with Days of Future Past, he showed that he can handle complex timelines and multiple character arcs. That's promising for a new trilogy in the Star Wars universe. But on the flip side, some of Kinberg's projects have faced criticism. His take on Dark Phoenix in 2019 wasn't well received, with critics basically noting the tone issues and character development flaws that were present. Um, that one it was a jumbled mess for that Dark Phoenix. I saw that and it wasn't maybe the worst one, but it was definitely on the bottom end of that list for X Men projects. Um, it just unfortunately, this raises a lot of concerns in me about whether he can consistently deliver what we are expecting as fans, especially for something like the Star Wars brand, which has already been damaged quite a bit. However, maybe if he's given enough creative freedom and the right support from Lucasfilm, his strengths in storytelling could give us a new perspective in the Star Wars galaxy or a new story. But I think really that all depends on Lucasfilm itself. As I feel personally, they have kind of moved away from George Lucas's vision, kind of in a way of saying, we know better than the creator, and that you can see that in a lot of their projects. The ones that have held true um, to the core ethos and mythology of Star Wars that Lucas created have been successes and done really well. And those that didn't just kind of basically divided the fandom. Really, it's not a division, it's just people not wanting to see that. People wanting to see good quality storytelling in the Star Wars universe. Now, the timing of this announcement is interesting. Kathleen Kennedy, Lucasfilm's president, has had a rocky few years with numerous announcements and director shakeups. Um, some speculate that this reveal could be a strategic move to try and extend her tenure at Lucasfilm, kind of presenting a fresh, ambitious project to Disney, kind of thing, and seeing if maybe, leaking that out, leaking that information out is going to generate some interest. Um, but it's going to be kind of tough because Kennedy, unfortunately, with her lack of leadership, has really crushed the Star Wars fandom. And there seems to be no reflection, no introspection, no ability to look at oneself and say, "Hey, maybe my vision for this is not the way we should be going." And that's not to I don't want to knock anybody who likes the Disney sequel trilogy or any of that stuff. More power to you. But if you compare that quality of work and you compare it to George Lucas's vision, especially the vision for the sequel trilogy, I mean, it's insulting, and it's just awful. I mean, we could have had so much better. And so, I mean, just look at historically. I mean, Kathleen Kennedy's track record with projects and how they lack the follow through. I mean, we've seen her announce projects with fanfare only to have them vanish without any kind of explanation. All right, so that's why I think this might be something just thrown out there to try and see if she can generate some interest and show, hey, I should still be here leading this ship, which I feel like she's leading it into the ground, but that's personal opinion. Anyway, some examples. What happened to the creators of Game of Thrones? David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, right? What happened to them? What happened to Ryan Johnson's trilogy that they announced and swore, that this is going to happen? Now, thankfully, that one did not happen. Because I wouldn't want to see a Ryan Johnson trilogy at all. After the Force, after the Last Jedi, that was just, oh, don't get me started on that tangent. But more recently, there's another one, Patty Jenkins. She was supposed to do Rogue Squadron. That went away. So there's a consistent history of hiring and firing of directors under her leadership. That's kind of doesn't give you the warm fuzzies with an announcement like this. And then, kind of already touched a little bit on this, is the issue of Star Wars' recent project quality. Lucasfilm's attempt to expand that Star Wars universe has seen mixed results. I mean, that's the nicest way I can put it, because some of the stuff is just pretty bad. Okay, let's just take the most recent, The Acolyte, for example. And this show has faced significant backlash from fans and critics alike for its handling of the Force and its deviations from canon, and just the jumbled story that it was. Unnecessary stuff in there. I mean, it just it didn't even make sense. Um, it turned basically the Jedi and the Sith narrative on its head, making the Jedi bad and evil, like child abduction group. I mean, I could go off on that for a while, but I'm going to save you the rant on that. Um, but I mean, you look at the shows like The Acolyte, it comes on the heels of things like Obi-Wan Kenobi that, it had good intentions, um, but it left a lot of us disappointed. There was a lot of promise in that, but even that kind of missed the mark. You've got Boba Fett, where Boba Fett didn't even act like Boba Fett, and we were like, "Who is this guy?" I mean, it was crazy. So there's been a lot of missteps. You look at Mandalorian, which was super successful, 1 and 2 on point, and then season 3, it was like, what happened? It's like almost they just gave up and went a whole different way. So I think Lucasfilm needs a clear direction that's going to resonate with fans. And many are hoping, the positive folks, half glass half full folks are saying, they hope that this new trilogy could be a fresh start. The biggest thing, though, I mean, with the recent wave of underwhelming Star Wars series, um, it just creates a unique challenge. I mean, Lucasfilm has got to get fans on board with this new trilogy. And in order to do that, they've got to prove that this project is going to be different from the rest, different from the ones that we've rejected. Something that's truly memorable and honors the essence of Star Wars. It has to honor what came before, what George Lucas put in place. If they can do that, then this has some hope. But um, I just call me skeptical. I don't know if they're going to be able to pull that off. Not with the current leadership. There are two things that I think will help make this sequel trilogy a success for Lucasfilm. The first I'm going to say is, let's talk about the financial discipline. I think in order to make this trilogy successful, Lucasfilm needs to apply strict financial discipline in everything that they do. The Disney Star Wars sequels, with budgets hovering around 200 million each, brought in revenue but left a trail of mixed reactions. So um, I think they shouldn't be going whole hog. Look at The Acolyte and how much money was dumped into that. and it's cancels after one season. So what I'm saying is the amount of money that's dumped into this new trilogy needs to be commensurate with the quality. So it's one thing if you dump a lot of money and your return is high quality, but if you dump a lot of money and you don't have um, a good story to back it up, and the props and the special effects are all garbage, um, it's going to be rough. I think, but I think there's also some benefit to having a more restrained budget, right? Um, it doesn't because I think if you have a restrained budget, it doesn't only reduce your risk as Lucasfilm and Disney, but it also encourages for those producing the film to focus on quality storytelling. That's what we need, right? And that's the hallmark that has kept Star Wars popular um, across decades. Prioritizing strategic spending on story development, compelling effects, the old school, those physical effects. I mean, I loved, the CGI is great and all, but some practical effects and top tier writing. I mean, if they can get the story and the writing together and spend the money on that, it could allow for the trilogy to connect with audiences emotionally without needing to overspend. I mean, look at successes like, let's just take, for example, Godzilla Minus One, right? That film, the budget was so small, yet the story was on point. It resonated with people. It did both the human aspect and the kaiju aspect. It was perfect on a tight budget, on an extremely tight budget. So you don't have to throw wads of cash to make something great. So I think constraining the budget, focusing on storytelling, and I think we'll do well for this sequel trilogy. Now, beyond budgets, Lucasfilm could benefit by steering away from the Disney's their sequel trilogies approach. While the sequels introduced Star Wars to a new generation, their divisive story choices split the fan base, and it just left people longing for a return to the OG, independent Star Wars storytelling. Um, I think by diverging from this divisive narrative, Simon Kinberg has the chance to explore new aspects of the Star Wars universe and reach audiences who have felt, disenfranchised and disconnected by the sequels. Um, if he can somehow do that, I mean, personally, I think it would probably be better to not have a new trilogy in the Skywalker quote unquote saga. It would probably be good to give Simon Kinberg a trilogy that was way in the past or a big jump in the future. Like completely like let's say you Disney does not want to alter the canon that has really done some damage to the Star Wars brand. I would just say don't even touch it. Go away from that. Go somewhere else. Go like in the past. Go to the Knights of the Old Republic, Go further back there, Don't tie this to the sequel trilogy that has caused so much heartache among fans. Um, I mean, personally, when I watched Disney sequel trilogy, I watched, you know, Episode 7. I I didn't like it for certain reasons, namely what they did with Han Solo and that whole thing, and the way they made him look, and then the way Ray was portrayed. And I really had hope for her. It wasn't like I didn't want that to be a good character. I just felt like it wasn't. She didn't really have a lot of development. It was like insert me, I'm automatically good, and I don't like that in any character. Um, but it was almost a retelling, beat for beat, of A New Hope, just with new characters. And in the process, they humiliated and just crushed the OG characters. And I said, okay, well, let's just see. There are some story parts here that could be interesting. And then we're like waiting for Luke. We go to The Last Jedi. And boy, that one was like just a knife through the heart for Star Wars fans. I mean, look, I know I can say the visuals. There were a lot of good-looking visuals, a lot of cool-looking sets of things, and that part I won't take away. But the things that they did in there, the way that they treated Luke, that was completely 180 out from his character. It's kind of like what they did with the Acolyte, right? That was just sort of like a furtherance of this kind of thing where the Jedi is bad. I mean, Luke's going to try and kill his nephew. I mean, he's going to go and murder him because a dream made him think that. I mean, the person who went through all of that to save his friends, he went through everything that he did to save his father and redeem him. I mean, it's things like that. We don't even need to touch that. Simon Kingberg needs to just be like, I am steering clear of all of that mess. Give me something in the future, okay? Something away from this. Don't tie it to the Skywalker saga. Do something different. That would be my advice. So, what's your opinion on this? What do you think the future looks like for Kinberg's trilogy? A few guesses, like I said, we might see something totally new in a new timeline or era. Although they're talking about just adding it on to the Skywalker trilogy. Do you think it's going to be something set in the past or the future? Um, I don't know. What's your opinion on this? Are you excited um, about Kinberg's attachment to this trilogy? He's had some really good involvement with past projects, from X Men through Rebels, Star Wars Rebels, and things. He's had some misses too. So, what's your opinion? I'd love to hear about it because I think if executed well, this trilogy could lay the foundation for a new generation of Star Wars fans and kind of bring us together. Is that what you think? Please let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more pop culture and entertainment content. Thanks a lot and talk to you soon.